So in the third way of configuration of AWS profiles, okay, the only difference is that when we configure the AWS with the help of AWS configure command, okay, so we specify the profile option. For example, here you can see we have a two command AWS configure hyphen profile dev hyphen profile prod. Okay, so if I compare it with the AWS CLI option, okay, so the first part is same. You first need to install your AWS CLI. So follow this process to install the AWS CLI on Linux system and this process for installation on the Windows. So once installation is completed, okay, so we ran the AWS configure here in the AWS CLI way. Okay, so now when we are on the AWS profile, so profiles means we can create the multiple accounts or we can attach the multiple account with the CLI. So what we have done here in the AWS configure, we have given the access key, secret key, and right here, right? So this is the access key and secret key for our main root user, which we use to log into our AWS console with the complete admin privileges. Okay, sometime what happens that in many environments, okay, each and every user will have their own account. Okay, so when the users have their own account, or maybe you have some different environments like development, production, and you have a different credentials for the different environments. So instead of configuring with the access and secret key of the main root user account, what we do, we create the different users in the AWS account with the different privileges, and all those users admin and secret key, because this access key and secret key is associated with each and every user, right? So if you have your own personal account on the AWS, you will have your own access key and secret key. And once you log in as a root user, for example, if you're in an organization, right, in an organization, there could be multiple engineers are working on the AWS account. So each and every engineers may have their own account, right? They may not be logging with the same user, same admin user. So you have created the own individual users ID for each and every user, so that better tracking purpose, who is doing what, right? So in this situation where you want your all users use their own access key and own secret key instead of the central main user key, so in that case we use the AWS profile option. So what exactly we do, we configure the AWS configure and we specify the profile name. Okay, and with this profile name, what we do, we specify the secret key or access key of that particular user, or maybe specific to an environment. So in that case, what is the difference will come here? So in the previous AWS CI, we have seen in the more, when we done the more of config file, which was created inside the AWS folder. So this was the only entry, right? So why this was the only entry? Because this is a default entry that has been created. We have configured with the central root account. But now we are going to create different profiles, maybe the for different set of users, for different set of environments. So each environment will have own access key and secret key. So there will be a each and every entry here for each and every environment. So in a nutshell, you can say that in when you are working in a collaborative way, so and if where you have a users with your own account, then each and every account has own access key and secret key, or maybe you have designed some profile according to the different environment. So in that case, we use the AWS profile option. So configuration installation is almost same. The very first part, as I said, you have to follow the same way of the installation of AWS CLI, which we have followed in the previous session. Okay, but only difference is that instead of running the AWS configure, okay, you need to run with the hyphen profile option. Simple. Okay, so once you will run with the hyphen profile option, so it will add another entry in the config file like this one. So whatever the profile that you are going to create with the AWS configure, it is going to add same entry here. Okay, it is going to append all entries here. Okay, after that, the only main difference when we call, or you can say when we run the different code files for configuration of the resources, right? So this is a code what we have seen so far for the testing purpose in the previous two sessions, right? So only difference here you are seeing when we add the provider here. Okay, provider AWS. So in the provider section, we have to add the profile, because now we are using the different profiles. So when we are running the actual code, okay, so Terraform should know about out of all profiles, which profile you want to use for the authentication with the AWS, right? Because every profile has the corresponding access key. So when you are going to run the code to create the resources in a cloud, so you need to specify which profile you want to use, so that Terraform will select the corresponding access key and secret key for connecting with the AWS account. So that's the only difference. Now again, you don't need to worry about all this code, as I have been saying in all the previous two sessions, okay, because we have a detailed session on this only, okay, because this is the only root of your Terraform when we work for the in the creating the resources, okay. So we'll understand it in a deep way going forward, okay. But as of now, what only you need to understand, when we define the Terraform code files, okay, and if you are using the multiple profiles where every user has own profiles, okay, so in the provider tag you need to specify the profile, so that your Terraform will identify which access ID I need to select to connect to your AWS account. So that's the only difference between AWS profile and AWS CLI configuration, right? So now what I will do, I will quickly show you with the execution as well, okay? So first part I am going to skip. The first part means the installation of the CLI on the Linux and Windows, because I have already covered in the previous session. So that is almost same. Now the only difference is that, as I said, when you are configuring, okay, so you need to provide the hyphen profile and the name of profile. So I will just configure for one of the profile. Let us say that I am going to configure it for the dev profile, okay. So I will go my Linux machine here, and I will run the same command, AWS configure and with hyphen profile dev, okay. So it is again going to prompt me for the same input which we have seen for the AWS configure. You can see here it is asking for the AWS access ID, okay. So I am going to use the same, okay, but just consider or assume that this is the access ID of my dev profile. I have a separate account, okay, and I am going to use the access key of that particular account, okay. So similarly way I will provide the secret key here and select the region in which region you want to connect, and then output format is JSON. Okay, it is done. So now if I go inside the AWS folder here, sorry, inside my home folder, there would be AWS. And now if I show you the config file here, sorry, I am inside the wrong directory. Let me go back. This is my home directory, and then I have to go inside the dot AWS, right? And then more config. So now you can see earlier there was only default entry in the previous session, right? So this was the default profile. And now we have added one more profile. So we have a dev profile, okay. And similarly, the corresponding credentials will be added in the here. So as of now, it is saying same for both, because for demo purpose, I use the same access key and ID. Okay, but in your case, this user or this environment, this profile may have a different access ID and key, so it will be displayed here. So similarly, you can run the AWS configure command, and you can configure multiple profiles for multiple users, for multiple environments. Okay, and during the testing, you need to provide the profile name here. Okay, so now if I go back here, let me go back here and I create a directory mkdir test1. I will go inside test1. I will create main.tf file to check the connectivity. So code is almost same what we have seen so far in the previous two sessions. The only difference is there. Now I am saying that do the authentication with the AWS with the help of this particular profile, which is the dev profile. Okay, save. Now I will run the Terraform init first to initialize the Terraform in my current folder, which is my current project folder with the name of test1. Okay, so once the initialization is done, then I will run the Terraform plan command. Okay, so now this time again it is going to connect to the AWS CLI, but with the help of credentials that is used by the dev. So now you can see it is successfully connected. Okay, but now for the connectivity, what is the difference with the previous session? Okay, the difference only is, let me show you again. Difference only is it use the profile dev. So whatever the credentials that you have provided during the configuration of dev profile, it will going to use same, right? Now similarly, you can go for other profile as well. Now suppose that you have a prod profile, okay, or maybe a user. Instead of this prod, you may have a username. Okay, this profile is for a particular user. Okay, so let me go back here. So now what I will do, instead of prod, I will give the username. Suppose that this is going to, you are configuring it for some user. Okay, so profile, and then let us suppose that we have a user with the name of digitalk. Okay, so now it is prompting for, so now suppose that this is the sorry, access key for the digitalk user. So this you need to select from the AWS console. Okay, and now suppose that this is the secret key for the digitalk user. Then region, I will use the same region. Okay, output format is JSON. Okay, so now if I go inside AWS again, if I show you the config, you can see one more profile added. Okay, and similarly, if I show the credentials folder, you will see one more credentials added.